Have you ever just stared at the person sleeping next to you in the dead of night and realized you have absolutely no idea who they are? The woman lying beside me right now, the love of my life, the person who kisses my forehead every single morning before work, is secretly building a digital museum of other women in the next room. Why does she have hundreds of screenshots of faces she claims she's never met? Why did she tell me she was playing a harmless game when she was actually hunting for prey? And what happens when the person who promised to be your safe space becomes the exact reason you need to lock the door? My thumb is hovering over a hidden folder on her iPad. It's titled References. The second I tap it, the life I spent years building is going to turn to ash. But before I show you the horror of what was inside that folder, you need to understand how flawlessly she had me fooled. Hey besties, before we get started, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a few seconds and it really helps us create more videos like this. I am a text conservator at a university library. It's a quiet life, a meticulous life. I spend my days bent over a brightly lit table using silver spatulas and Japanese tissue paper to stabilize fragile, centuries-old documents. My entire job is looking for structural flaws, mending deep tears, and preserving history before it crumbles into dust. I know how to fix broken things. I know how to hold something delicate so it doesn't shatter. And then I met Mila. Mila was a creative director, a talent scout for an indie multimedia agency. She was everything a dusty, controlled archivist is not. She was a hurricane of charisma, effortlessly fluid in a crowd, possessing this terrifying, intoxicating ability to make you feel like you were the only person in the room. When she looked at you, the rest of the world just went out of focus. She told me early on that her job was to find the hidden beauty in people before anyone else could see it. I thought that was the most romantic thing I had ever heard. The first month was a blur of golden hour euphoria. We were inseparable. We were building a foundation so fast it felt like vertigo. And then I found the first crack. 4 weeks into our relationship, a notification popped up on her unlocked phone. It was her ex. And it wasn't just a text. It was a reference to the night before, the night Mila had told me she was working late at the studio. My stomach completely fell out of my body. When I confronted her, the air in the room just shifted. Mila didn't panic. She didn't scream. She sat on the edge of my bed and looked at her hands and cried, softly. She told me she had been scared of how fast we were moving, that she had panicked and made a terrible, meaningless mistake. "I choose you, Madison," she whispered, looking up at me with wet, desperate eyes. "I will block her right now. I will cut her out entirely. But I just need to know. I need to know you won't hold the past over my head forever if I choose you." In my line of work, you learn that some things are too damaged to save, but you patch them anyway, hoping the glue holds. I told myself that forgiveness was a one-time intellectual decision, not an heavy, agonizing emotional process. I chose to be the understanding partner. But I didn't realize that by letting her set the terms of my forgiveness, I'd handed her the blueprint on how to break my heart again. How do you unlearn a betrayal? You don't. You just bury it under a mountain of carefully constructed logic. A year had passed. We lived in a beautiful, sunlit apartment. By all external measures, we had survived the early storm and emerged perfectly in love. But beneath the surface, my intuition was trapped in a state of hypervigilance, constantly scanning for threats I refused to acknowledge out loud. We were at a high-energy industry night at a crowded, neon-lit lounge downtown. Mila was in her element, effortlessly floating from group to group, a glass of gin in her hand. I was watching her from a velvet booth, nursing a club soda, admiring the way the ambient light caught her jawline. And then I saw her talking to a young, striking, aspiring actress. Mila was leaning in close, laughing at something the girl said. I watched her pull out her phone, type something in, and hand the device to the actress to enter her number. When Mila returned to our booth 5 minutes later, she kissed my cheek, completely unbothered, and placed her phone on the marble table. Thud. Face down. It was a small sound, but it echoed in my chest. A new habit. A border closing between us. The next afternoon, we were in our kitchen. The sun was pouring in, the smell of garlic and olive oil filling the room as we made lunch together, a picture of domestic perfection. Her phone, resting face down on the granite, vibrated. The screen lit up against the surface. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, casual. Mila flipped it over, glanced at the name, and swiped to silence it. "Just a lead from last night, that actress I was talking to. She's got a great look for a new campaign we're staffing." My chest tightened. A visceral spike of anxiety, cold and sharp, shot through my veins. "Since when do you take talent calls on a Sunday afternoon?" Mila paused. She set the knife down on the cutting board. She didn't look angry. She looked deeply, profoundly disappointed. She walked over and placed her hands gently on my shoulders. "Maddie," she sighed, her voice dripping with patience. "It's my job. I scout talent. Our financial future depends on me networking. Are we really doing this? Are you going to hold the past over my head every time my phone rings?" There it was, the phrase, the weapon she had forged a year ago. The anxiety inside me didn't go away. It just went underground. I swallowed the lump in my throat, intellectually convinced myself that my scars were blinding me to reality. I apologized. I kissed her. I let the logic crush my intuition into a fine powder. But the face-down phone never went away, and the silence in our apartment began to feel incredibly loud. By the winter, Mila's agency had picked up a massive new client, and her hours became brutal. She was coming home exhausted, emotionally depleted, distant. Desperate for a lighthearted way to bridge the growing gap between us, I suggested we download a casual gaming app. "We can play pool or Scrabble on our phones during your commute or between meetings," I told her, trying to sound cheerful. Just a small way to stay connected. Mila smiled, a genuine warm smile, and downloaded it. For a week, it worked. We played silly matches, sent little heart emojis in the game chat. It felt innocent. It felt like we were breathing again. But then the invites stopped. She claimed she was too tired to play, too swamped to check the app. Yet at 2 a.m., I would wake up to the cold, artificial blue glow of her screen illuminating her side of the bedroom. She would be lying perfectly still, her back to me, furiously typing. I would lie there, holding my breath, pretending to sleep, telling myself it was just work emails. Until the night I needed a recipe. Mila was in the shower. Her iPad was sitting on the living room sofa. I picked it up to check my saved bookmarks for a pasta dish. As the screen woke up, a notification banner slid down from the top of the glass. Gaming app. Elena 99. Your turn. Missed your voice today. My blood turned to ice. My fingers were trembling so badly I almost dropped the tablet. I opened the app. It wasn't just Elena. It was Sarah. It was Chloe. It was a dozen different usernames, a dozen different chat logs. I clicked into them, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. They weren't talking about pool. They weren't talking about Scrabble. Mila was sending highly personalized, deeply flirtatious paragraphs, asking them about their dreams, telling them they were beautiful, offering the exact same intoxicating attention she had used to pull me into her orbit. She was using a space I created for our intimacy as a hunting ground for strangers. I sat on that sofa, listening to the water running in the bathroom, entirely consumed by a sickening realization. It wasn't physical. She hadn't slept with them, and because of that, a tiny, deeply broken part of my brain whispered, "Does this even count? Are you really going to blow up your whole life over a game chat?" I didn't confront her that night. I stayed quiet. I let the poison sit in my veins. But the silence was what led me to the photo stream. 3 days later, the dam finally broke. I was looking through our shared Apple photo album on her laptop, searching for a picture of our cat from a vacation we took months ago. I scrolled past the dates, past the memories, past the smiling selfies of us at the beach. And then I saw an anomaly, a hidden folder, password protected. But Mila had a habit of using the same 4-digit code for everything, the year her mother left. I typed it in. The folder unlocked. I didn't breathe for a full minute. It was an archive, hundreds of screenshots, Instagram profiles, carefully cropped photos of faces, handles, and bios of ordinary, beautiful women. It wasn't pornography. It was far more terrifying than that. It was a systematic collection. "What are you looking at?" Mila's voice cut through the room like a gunshot. She was standing in the doorway, holding a mug of coffee. Her eyes darted from my face to the glowing screen. "Who are they?" I choked out, spinning the laptop around. "Mila, who are these women?" I expected her to panic. I expected the same tears from our first month. I expected a denial. But she didn't do any of those things. Mila walked over, calmly, set her coffee down, and looked at the screen with terrifying sincerity. "They're nobody, Madison," she said, her voice completely deadpan. "They're just a folder. It's a digital museum. I look at them, I talk to them sometimes, and then I come home to you. You are my real life." "You are secretly archiving other women," I screamed, the suppressed anxiety of an entire year finally exploding out of me. "You're hunting them on the app I downloaded for us. You're flirting with them. It's cheating, Mila." "It is not cheating," she snapped, her voice finally rising, the mask slipping to reveal a fierce, defensive rage. "I haven't touched anyone. I haven't kissed anyone. I am surviving, Madison. I have a demanding job. I have all this pressure, and sometimes I just need to feel desired without the suppressing weight of this relationship. But I chose you. I built a home with you." She stepped closer, pointed a finger at my chest. "You are doing it again," she hissed. "You're projecting your trauma onto me. You're so damaged by your past that you are violating my privacy, breaking into my folders, and destroying us over literally nothing. You're driving yourself crazy, Maddie." I stood frozen in the middle of my own living room. The room was spinning, her logic was twisted, so perfectly delivered that for a terrifying, agonizing moment, I believed her. I looked at the screen, then at her face. Mila didn't see her actions as a betrayal. She saw me as the anchor, the safe harbor, while she kept a fleet of ships out at sea to feed an endless, gnawing void inside herself that I could never, ever fill. Her intense affection for me after those long nights wasn't guilt. It was the high of successfully maintaining two separate realities without them colliding. I didn't say another word. I couldn't. I just walked past her and went into the bedroom, pushed to the absolute brink of my own sanity, entirely convinced that I was the villain for finding the knife she had kept hidden in my back. The next morning, the apartment was quiet. Mila woke up and acted as if the storm had passed. She made coffee. She kissed my forehead. She offered me the warm domestic normalcy she used as a sedative. "I have some errands to run," she said softly, grabbing her keys. "I'll be back by noon. We can order in. I love you." I waited for the heavy front door to click shut. I didn't cry. The chaotic despair of the night before had completely vanished, replaced by a profound, unshakable calmness. It was the stillness of a ghost. I went to my library workshop. The archive was empty on a Sunday. I sat down at my brightly lit table and pulled out the deeply damaged 19th century manuscript I had been working on all month. I picked up my silver spatula. I looked at the frayed, rotting edges of the paper. As I touched the spine, the paper flaked away beneath my fingers. It turned to dust. And in that perfectly silent, temperature-controlled room, I finally understood. Some structural tears cannot be mended. You can patch them, you can glue them, you can intellectualize the damage all you want, but a structure built on rot is destined to collapse. You cannot love someone into respecting your reality. I didn't need to have another circular argument. I didn't need to scream until my throat bled, begging her to admit what she had done. I no longer needed her permission to believe my own eyes. By refusing to engage in her game of distortion, I was taking all the power back. I returned to our apartment. I pulled my suitcase from the top of the closet. I didn't pack everything, just the essentials, just enough to survive the week while I figured out the rest. I moved systematically, efficiently, like an archivist boxing up a closed exhibit. I walked into the kitchen one last time. The morning light was still pouring over the granite counter. I took my apartment key off my ring. I placed it gently on the cold stone. Beside it rested her secondary work phone, left behind resting face up, entirely silent. I left the key next to her face-up phone, finally realizing that the hardest part of being gaslit isn't the lie they tell you, it's the lie you tell yourself to make a stranger stay. If you made it this far, hit the like and subscribe button and check out the next video on the screen to keep the story going.